Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about locators. So locators are basically methods or ways to find a unique web element. Now what is the need of locators? Let's try to understand with the example. So I'll take one demo website. So this is an automation demo website which we can use for automating or for that matter any application. So let's say on this particular application we want to log in. Okay, for that we need to input some text in the username and input some text in the password and then click on login, and let's say any other operation you want to do on this. Okay, now for us to, let's say, input something in this or click here or perform any operation, we need to find the element which is unique, so that when our automation code is running it is going to find that particular element. Now how do we do that? So basically for any web browser page you will have a HTML DOM. So if I'll click on inspect, and here you'll see that if I'll keep on focus and whatever element I'll select, that is going to get highlighted here. Now what is this HTML DOM structure? So let me just maximize this. So basically if you see here, the entire page, however it is designed, that is going to contain lot of different properties. Those properties are going to be listed here. Now in our code we need to mention the unique property so that it is able to find and then take action on this. Now since this is a web page, that's why whatever elements we are going to find or whatever properties we are going to find are called as web elements, and using that we can identify its uniqueness and then take action on it. Okay, now that's why these all are called, like when we are going to find the properties, those all are going to be called as web elements. Okay, now in total there are 8 different methods by which you can find the unique property. Okay, now let's try to understand it with the example. Let me copy this and we will open our Eclipse, and I'll quickly create a new class here. New class, we can call it as locators tutorial. Okay, so I'll just put all this here. And since you're watching this video, I assume that you have basic knowledge of how to launch a browser, and also I'm not going to waste time on that. I'll just copy this from another code. So here I'll put this. Okay, so basically what we are doing here is we are launching the browser and then we are launching the URL and maximizing it. Okay, now in case you're not aware about this, do check out my other videos. Okay, so let's talk about the first locator, that is called ID. So I'll just put locators and I'll put ID here. Okay, now using this driver we can find it. So the command is going to be driver.findElement and by, and the moment you click on dot you'll get all the different options. Now there are 8 different options provided by Selenium. Okay, so I'll select by.id and then I'll put brackets, and then whatever is the ID of that property, that we are going to mention here. Okay, so let's say we want to input in username. So I'll right click, inspect, and here let me put it in the doc window below so that we are able to correlate this. So here if you see, if I put it on username, I'm able to see this property. And here if you will take a close look at this, you have input class is a property, placeholder, type, text, data test, ID, name, and different properties are there. Now if the ID property is listed, this is going to be a very stable property to use because it is not going to be repeated in this HTML DOM. Now I'll copy this ID and I will put it here, by.id, and then you put inverted commas and then you put the ID. Now this is going to find the property, this particular property, which is username. That's how we have found this. Okay, now let's say I want to perform an action on this. So there could be different actions. It depends on the what kind of element we are working with. Now this is the text, so we are going to pass some value, and for passing value we use send keys. So we'll put send keys, and then we can pass whatever value we want. Like let's say I'll put whatever is the username they have given us to use, so standard underscore user, and I will close this. Now what this is going to do, this is going to search with this particular property and send keys here. Now let me quickly run this and we'll see if it is working or not. It is just taking a minute to load. So yeah, our execution is launched. Now see, the browser is launched and we got our username input into the text. Okay, now this is how you find it with the ID. Okay, now what I was telling before is this is a web element, right? Now we can write it using this, or what we can do is we can save this into a web element. Now how do we do that? I'll mention web element, in which W and E are going to be caps. Now whatever name I want I can use, so I'll write like instead of username I can write ID locator. That's how, so it will be easier since we are dealing with locators video. Okay, so now what is going to happen is whatever it is finding, web element it is finding by this particular command is going to get stored in this. Now this is an efficient way of doing it. I'll just quickly import this web element from open.qa.selenium, and now if I want to perform any action, I can perform whatever actions I want. So let's say if I want id locator dot send keys or click, or like whatever type of functionality is there. So let's quickly check. If I put testing here and I'll put a semicolon, running this, now it is going to put testing in the username field. So see, this is working fine. So this is how you use ID. Okay, now ID is the most stable form, but let's say ID is not available, then how do you proceed with this? So that's why all the different methods are there. So it will depend on what kind of element you are interacting and what kind of property it gives, so you change it accordingly. Okay, now let's say we are working with name. Now this is also going to be similar, but I'll just write out everything down so that we understand this clearly. Okay, let me just expand this. So here it would be driver dot find element by. Now instead of ID we are going to use name, so I'll put name. Okay, now what name we need to use, let's take the scenario what we are going to do. So let's take in password we are going to take we are going to input some credential. Okay, so I'll inspect this, click on inspect, I'll just put this down, and here if you will see for the password, let me focus this. So here if you will see in the password attributes we are able to see the name as well. So let me just, so here if you see name, so you can use name as well. Now whichever property, whichever locator you want to use, you can use it as per your requirement, and we need to make sure that it is robust and it is not going to break as well. Now usually ID name are pretty stable web elements. Okay, now by.name, and I'll put this here, and again we want to send this. Okay, so I'll put send keys, and let's say I'll put I'm just putting in some fake values here, pwd, and I'll close this. Okay, now we can use this particular command, and similarly as previously I have explained, we can make a web element out of it and then pass the command. Okay, so let's quickly run this and see if it is working. So now our ID and password both are input, as you can see. So this is how you identify it using name. Okay, now let me just put in some okay, we will move to the third locator. Now we have understood ID name, and let's understand the class name. Okay, so I'll put 3 here, and similar thing we need to perform here, driver dot find element by dot, now we are using class name, so we'll put class name. Okay, and then whatever is the class name, and then a semicolon. Now let's say which property we want to work with. Let's say we want to work with this only. Let me remove this and try to inspect this. Okay, so or instead of this, since we have taken username and password, let's take login. I'll click on inspect, and here if you see, we have the property class, so we are good and we can use this. Now you can use ID or name as well, but since we are talking about class name, I'm going to use this. Okay, now I'll copy this and I'll paste in here. Okay, now since it is a button, we are not going to send any text to this. What we are going to do, we can click on it. So okay, so that also we can easily use. I can just put dot and then I'll get all the different options which I can do. So I'll right click and this. Okay, now since we were using wrong username and password, I'm going to use the standard names and all. So here if you see in this website, you'll see accepted usernames and password. So let's take this accepted username and I'll put in this. Okay, now in password they have mentioned secret underscore sauce, so I'll use this and I will, sorry, I have mistakenly updated the ID here, so that is going to be here in the send keys. Sorry, that is standard underscore user, my bad. So this is the correct username, and in case of password it is this. So I'll copy this and I'll put this here. So what we are doing is we are inputting ID and password, and now we want to click. So click is our example for class name. I'm going to run all these three so that we are able to see if the login is happening or not. Okay, so I'll click on run and we see that our browser is launched, our input happened, and then it is trying to click on login. So login is not going to happen. I'll explain why. So basically what happens is, whenever you will have any for any particular element, if the attribute is the details are like this, and if there is a space, you need to remove the space. Like you need to consider only thing which is before space. So if I'll click on this, hopefully this should ideally work. So let me run this again. See, our login happened. It input the username and password and then clicked on login. So this is how the class name is used. Okay, now there could be chances that the space is there or not there, but in case it is there, just use the text before space. Okay, so we understood all the three locators. Now let's understand the fourth locator, tag name. Okay, now tag name. Okay, now what is tag name? Let me launch this, and here if you see, when we are going to take a look at the web elements, the HTML DOM structure, here you will find all the different properties. Let me expand this so we can see it better. Okay, so we are able to see the tags. So these are called tags, like HTML head, body, div, and whatever, like image, links. Those all the properties are listed here. Okay, now tag name is not a very stable property to look for, and the reason is because one particular tag is usually going to be repeated as well. So it is not ideal to use, but there would be conditions where you might have to use it, so we should know how to work with this. So let me do one thing. So let's say I want to perform an operation on username text box using using tag name. So I'll click on username, I'll click on this focus button, then I'll click on username, and here if you see, the input is the tag is input. Okay, now we can use this particular thing as well, hopefully if there is no other input in the top. Okay, now I will go back to my script, and here what I'll mention is driver dot find element by dot, and I'll get the option for tag name. So here if you see, by.tagName is there. Okay, so I'll select this. Okay, now whatever tag is there, you're going to mention in this input. Okay, now what happens is, when you search with input, you are going to get lot of different input tags available. Okay, now how find element and find elements work is, when you are searching for find element, it is going to find just one element, while in case of find elements, it is going to find all the different elements. That I'm going to cover how to work with find element and elements in case of tag name in a different video. But here what is going to happen is, whatever is the first property it is going to find, that it is going to act upon. Okay, so one quick way to understand, you can take a look at HTML DOM as well and try to understand, but a better way for which property it is referring to, we can use a text functionality and we can use it in that way, or there are different ways. So see, we are able to find this particular element. Now what I'll do is, I'll make a web element of this. So let's create a web element of this, and we'll say tag name underscore locator. Okay, and here I'll write tag name dot tag name dot, one second. So here you will get all the different options, like if you want to click on this or if you want to get the value of this. Now let's take a look at this. So if I will click on this and if I will click on this, here we have to see if there is some text available. So if I scroll this on this side, so I'm not able to see any text value here, but most likely it is going to come here. So we'll try to see by just performing an operation if it is working or not. Okay, so since this is a text field, I'm going to pass sendKeys here. One second. Tag name underscore locator dot sendKeys, and we will mention the sendKey standard user. Okay, now since I am going to work only on the login page, I am going to comment this out right now, and let's comment this out as well, and we can comment this out as well, because we are just going to input in the input field, and this I'll leave as it is because it is for launching the browser. So I'll click on run here, and our browser is launched, and see our input credentials, whatever we have given, is updated there. So it is working fine. So that's how you use tag name property. Okay, now there could be different uses as well, like usually in tag name property you're going to have a list of elements, but there could be chances it is only one. Okay, so you can use it in this way. This is not very effective if we are trying to work with just one element, but there would be conditions in which we have to use this. So this is how you work with tag name. Okay, now let's try to understand the fifth one, which is CSS selector. Okay, so I'll copy this and I'll put here CSS selector. Okay, now I'll just comment this out as well. Now CSS selector method and Xpath, these are two particular locators which we can customize a lot, and that is going to be a bigger topic to discuss. So I'll be creating different videos on CSS selector and Xpath in upcoming time, so do check out that as well in case you want a deep understanding of this. But in this video we are just discussing that how we are going to work with the locators. So I'm going to use this. So simple method, driver dot find element by dot, you would have got an idea by now, you just search for CSS selector. Okay, so I can use this. And now how to find a CSS selector. Okay, now if I go here, now we'll again take the input, or let's take password. So I'll right click, inspect, and in this particular property it is pointing to password. Okay, now what I'll do is right click and I'll get an option copy, and here we'll get an option called copy selector. Okay, so I can use this and I have to just put that property here. Now this is not a very effective way of doing it, and we are going to discuss the different ways of how to find a CSS selector in a different video. But just to give you an idea, it usually starts with hash and then whatever the property we want to use. Okay, now this is one quick way of finding the CSS selector. Now since we are dealing with the password, I am going to just send some value in this. So I'll write send keys, and let's say I want to write pwd in password. Okay, and I'll close this. Now I'm going to run this and we'll see if it is working fine or not. So I'll click on run. So browser is launched, and as you can see the password is updated here. Okay, now this is how we find using CSS selector. Now let me comment this out and we will see what is the next locator. The next locator is Xpath. Okay, now Xpath is one of the widely used locators. So there are different ways to work with Xpath. Okay, now there are different tools available as well, which you can put your HTML DOM, or there are plugins as well in which you can find the Xpath easily. But if you're just starting with this, I would recommend you to check my another video which is going to come in few days, in which we are going to talk about Xpath in detail. So if you are a beginner and you are trying to work with this, do try to do it manually and not use some extensions or tools at least at the initial part, so you get a better understanding of how Xpath is created. But anyways, for this video, let's take username. Okay, so I'll click on this, and here whichever element it is pointing to, right click on this, and here in copy, go to copy, and here you'll see the option copy Xpath or copy full Xpath. So if I'll just click on copy, and same thing for all the locators. So you would have got a hold of the command now, driver dot find element by dot, and we will see the option Xpath. Okay, so I will copy paste the one which I have copy pasted from here. So I have right clicked, copy, and here I found the option copy Xpath. Okay, so that I have entered here. Now since this was the username, I am going to send some keys into this. So let's say standard underscore user is there. Okay, and I'll stop this. Okay, now this is how you find it using Xpath. Let me run this and we'll see, or instead of standard user, let's write something that's testing. Okay, I'll run this. So see the similar action, whatever. So see, testing is populated here. Now similar action, whatever you want to perform, you can use all the different locators. It depends on what kind of requirement you have, but you have to make sure when you're building your code that you're trying to use the most robust locator at that particular in your scenario, and it will depend on how properties are mentioned and all that. So that's how you use Xpath. Okay, let me comment this out and we'll try to see the seventh locator. Now seventh locator is linked text and eighth is partial linked text. So as you could understand that these locators are going to deal with the links. Now usually they are going to be different objects on a web element where using link we are displaying that particular element. So let's see this in action. Let me copy this link text. Okay, I'll put this here. Now here if you will see, we do not have any link text on this particular page. At least I cannot find, and it's a very small page. So in the next page we have link text. So let's do one thing. This is browser launch and URL maximize, and with this ID we were sending the username. So let me decomment this out. We are going to use ID, and with this we are going to enter the password. Okay, and with this we are going to click on this. Okay, so that's all we need. Now if I'll show you this functionality what I'm talking about, so standard underscore user and password is secret underscore sauce, and I'll click on login. So on this page, if you scroll all the way below, here you'll be able to see that there are three icons for like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Okay, so these all are link text. And how do I know that? So if you right click, you click on inspect, you'll be able to find a property called A. Okay, so that is going to give you the link. So this is a link text. Okay, now using link text, how can I work on this? So let's check that out. Now say similar command is going to be there, driver dot find element, driver dot find element by dot link text. Okay, now in terms of link text, what does it mean? So whenever you're going to work with any link, you see in this here, this is the text which we need to mention. Okay, now it could be unique, it could not be unique, so we have to work around that. But this a tag denotes that it is a link text, and this is the text which we are going to use. So if I mention Twitter here, so I have to mention like this, and I'll mention Twitter here. Sorry. Okay. Now with this I'll be able to find the element, and what I have to do is I have to click on this. So I'll write dot click and I'll close this. So it is actually finding this particular element, and this is a link, so it is going to find in that way. I'll close this out, and here if you see, I'm just using the previous commands of entering into the application. So here login, password, and then submit, and then here we are using link text to click on Twitter. So let's run this out and see. So what is happening? URL is launched, login happened, and then it has clicked on the Twitter option in the below section. Okay, so here if you see, it has clicked on this. So this is how link text is used. Okay, now there could be conditions in which, let's say if the Twitter is sometime displayed as Twitter, or sometimes it is displayed as a Twitter user or something like that. Okay, so in a link, sometimes a partial text is going to change. Okay, in those type of cases, we are going to use by partial link text. So let me comment this out and we'll see what we are talking about. So let's say instead of Twitter, I want to click on Facebook. I'll click on inspect, and here if you see, give me 1 second, let me relaunch this. So we are working with sourcedemo.com, and I'll log in here and right click inspect, and let's say we want to work on this Facebook link. So I'll click on this focus and I'll click on this. So here if you see, in this particular link, we have the text called as Facebook. Okay, let's say in case of Facebook, the face is going to change to Meta or something in future, or that is going to be a probability. So we can use the partial text as well to identify the element. Now that is going to be very tricky, because in case it is repeated in the page, then we have to find that it is not repeated, or the text what we are going to use is actually going to be unique. So let's take book here. Okay, so instead of, let me go to 8th locator, partial link text. Okay, now similar, driver dot find element by dot partial link text. And what I was talking about, in case of Facebook, I'm just going to use book, or we can try with face as well if that is working. So I'll put book here, and what I want to do is I want to perform a click operation on this. So I'll do dot click. Okay, now we are going to input to the application, and we are going to use the partial link text property to navigate to the Facebook link. Okay, so I'll click on run. Your browser is launched, login will happen, then it will go to the Facebook link and it will click on that. Since it is happening very fast, we are not able to see the second page there, and it has worked fine. Okay, now could it work with face? It could be, so we can check that out. Let's say I'll write FACE, and I'll click on run. So with face also, hopefully it should work. Yes, with the face also it is working. So see, our page is getting launched. Now it depends. Try to use link text, but in cases, there would be different cases where you have to use the partial link text. There you can use partial link text as well. Okay, now let's take a look at this entirely. So in total there are 8 different locators available: ID, we can use it with by.id, by.name, similarly with all the different locators. Now id is very stable, name is very stable. Class name and tag name are not that stable because class name is usually going to get repeated as well. And similarly with tag name also, it's going to be, there are high chances it is going to get repeated, but there would be cases where you would need to use it, but the id and name are most recommended. Then in case of CSS selector and Xpath, these are the two locators which can be highly customized. So I'm going to create a different videos about specifically about CSS selector and Xpath, one for tag name as well. So we can check out the details there. And the link text and partial link text I have explained here. Now I'm going to put all these details in terms of what syntax to be used and what are the different locators in the description section. And let me know if you find this video helpful. Do like, share and subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.